Hello, and happy Gemini full moon coming up. Today we're excited to talk about this Gemini full moon happening on Monday, November 27th. It's going to be at 1:16 a.m. in Pacific Standard Time, so adjust for your location.
This is the Soli Luna Inspiration with Dayana Robinson and Martin Comtois, and this is the light at the end of the tunnel. We spent a whole month into the dark waters of Scorpio, and now we welcome a Gemini full moon with a Sun-Mars Sagittarius conjunction, so that's liable to be quite an exciting full moon. Let's see what, or do you have something to add to that?
No, I'm excited. It's going to be light, and well, we'll see if it's light. It feels like it could be very light, very communicative, definitely very social.
My feeling is that once the sun enters into Sagittarius, we're going to see a drastic change of energy. And so then this full moon on the 27th, so on the 23rd, the sun enters Sagittarius, and then we have a series of important squares. We did a new video series called the Astrological Monthly Forecast on the month of Sagittarius. You can refer to that. It's a kind of a monthly forecast, but this is a video about the full moon, and we're going to do a tarot card to give us an idea of what to expect. And let's see. Oh, the High Priestess. Oh, wow. Speaking of the quest for meaning, huh? The High Priestess. Quite a beautiful card. Let's look at the symbolism of the card. So we have the crescent moon, and we have the pomegranate, symbol of fertility, and then the full moon on her hat, and the dark and the light pillar, and the cross, and the High Priestess. Oh, what a beautiful archetype that is for our quest for our Gemini full moon. That's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. I see this like merging and balancing both sides of polarity to have a evolved higher perspective of things. And both Gemini and Sagittarius are very, there's a strong dual nature to both of those signs.
It'll be interesting to see what Carol has to say about that one. And so let's start fleshing out the chart a little bit.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll come back to the board, but first we want to show you this.
So Gemini full moon, light at the end of the tunnel. And again, you know, the tunnel is like the birth tunnel of the dark hallway that we've been in through. And in Sagittarius, we start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not quite out of it yet. And but at least there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And like the joke says, hopefully it's not a freight train. So we got so the dominating aspect, of course, when you read a full moon, you read from the moon first. And so we have a moon in Gemini in opposition to a Mars Sun conjunction in Sagittarius. So far, it's highly communicative and engaging, fire and air. And then we have the Saturn in Pisces, the spiritual discipline that we need to handle all of that. So Saturn in a water sign tells us, well, all this fire and air has to be balanced with right emotion and the right safe container. And so communicating our needs, expressing our vision, and providing a safe container. Wow, that's quite a lot. So what we're looking at is that moon in Gemini. So what's a moon in Gemini for you, Day?
Moon in Gemini. the inner self is always connecting pieces of information and looking for ways to create and find new pieces of information, new connections. Yeah, I see the inner world being very like creatively driven, but also maybe also pulled in many directions potentially. And then being in direct opposition to Mars, there's this like potential to react on things very quickly too.
Well, it's very reactive for sure. So astrology is really, whenever you think about a sign, you have to look at its opposite to describe that sign, so they say, if you dig enough into one sign, you'll find its opposite. So Gemini it's ruled by Mercury, it's the twins, and it's about gathering information. And for that gathering information, we're willing to go anywhere, right? And so there's no limit to where the Gemini goes. And the Gemini is a lot about short trips. So, this is a season where we do a lot of trips to go visit family, gathering information. And then Sagittarius, it's about the meaning of that information. And we have the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, in Sagittarius, and we have Mars and the Sun in Sagittarius, creating this really important focus on meaning of all that information that we're gathering, right? So then that's a very air, so blah, 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 very communicative, very engaging, very social, fiery, looking for stimulation and for intuition. This is a time of the year where we gather the information that when we go into Capricorn and go into winter, what we're gathering, the inspiration we're gathering right now will really go a long way to help us kind of stir the ship into the winter months and to the renewal part of the year. So it's a very important time to re-stimulate ourselves and to inspire ourselves. That fire sign being about spirit and inspire in spirit, so then this is a very important time of inspiration. And I think that the Saturn in Pisces really serves that, the discipline that we need, the emotional discipline that we need, Saturn in Pisces, to be connected with our feelings. Because yes, we can think all we want, and we can intuit or fire all we want. We have to be guided by our feelings. And so then the mastery of the feeling invited by Saturn and Pisces is really important if we're not just going to be a train wreck, and so, because all of that fire and air needs to be balanced by that water. And yeah.
Train wreck, or I see also like sometimes when you're biking really fast on a low gear or a high gear, and so you're just spinning out.
Or biking on a snowy road.
Not going anywhere, maybe backwards. Something that's really neat to me is that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and then Pisces here, Saturn in Pisces also is ruled by Jupiter. And so Jupiter is in Taurus right now, and it's going retrograde because it's so far from the sun. And it's ruling what's going on here in Sagittarius and in Pisces. So there's a potential for some grounding here and some expansion of your resources within yourself to be able to use this time hopefully productively.
That's a perfect leading to the next segment. Very good. That's intuition. No, you didn't forget. You were just like perfectly guided by intuition. So if you look at the moon up there in Gemini makes a little semi-sextile, a green line to Jupiter. And it makes a trine to Pluto. The moon goes to Pluto, and then Pluto's in square to Jupiter. So we have an Earth square that engages with the moon. So moon, Jupiter, Pluto constellation, mothering light to the darkness, the mothering light to the darkness. Let's flesh that out. So here we're looking, so then what we're looking for in analyzing a full moon is we look at see what the moon is doing. So then we saw this, really tense polarity with the sun and Mars and Mercury, and then the T-square with Saturn. But now we see that there's semi-sextile and a trine to Pluto, and then the square being made, forming this little triangle. So what does that tell us about this particular full moon?
That as much as there may be activation of the moon and all this Sagittarius energy, there's also this, I don't know, I see, even though it happens so often, Jupiter being retrograde to Pluto feels like there's this like, mustn't forget the ancestral work.
Must not forget the ancestral work. And so, the semi-sextile, it's a minor aspect, right? So it's a 30-degree aspect between moon and Jupiter. Moon in Gemini is really social, and Taurus, moon is exalted in Taurus. So then the great teacher and the moon here have a very fabulous little relation. Just as a little note, the glyph of Jupiter, if you look at the glyph of Jupiter right over there, okay, so the glyph of Jupiter, it looks like a 4, right? What you got is you got the cross of matter and the moon, the crescent moon, right? Oh, did I do that wrong? Yes. So the cross of matter and the crescent moon, right? The crescent moon and the cross of matter. That's the sign of Jupiter, an inverted 4. And so the vision of the moon, and again, in ancient astrology, the moon was much more important than the sun. Right. Because the moon is so much closer to the earth. And so then the moon classified the vessel, it's basically the soul in the body is the moon, and the mother and all of that. And so then the wise teacher expressing the vision of the moon. And so that's why I fleshed it out, the mothering light, the mothering Jupiterian energy going to Pluto, and Pluto being the archetypal great mother in terms of, the great mother versus the moon being the personal mother and a very personal archetype. Pluto is the mother of the whole show, and also associated with Hades and hell, and Pluto means riches. So then, yes, I think doing the meaning, we talked a lot about doing the ancestral work while Jupiter, while the sun was in Scorpio, and I think that this particular alignment here reminds us of that.
I see it. I like it.
So that's the two main constellations with the moon. And let's see what else we got for you.
One more key piece.
So we wanted to kind of declutter our lunar reading to make it just about the particular event. And so then we started these monthly forecasts, and then more focused on the moon itself, like we're doing here, fleshing out the astrological alignments. Let us know what you think of the new format, and if you like it, and if you have some comments or some advice for us. But what's the next one there?
So all of this kind of leads to how, when I said earlier to like the Jupiter, and Martin was just speaking of the mother and this connection with the moon and Jupiter. Jupiter in Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Venus is actually the ruler of the whole chart. And it's angling back to Pluto. It's angling to Saturn. And it's going up to Uranus.
And it's also going in opposition to Chiron. And it also makes a little sextile to Mercury, which we didn't write. But we'll talk about Mercury a little bit later. So we said Venus, ruler of the chart angles, Jupiter, Pluto, Chiron, Uranus, and also Saturn. Didn't put Saturn there, but finding time to nurture our personal needs. You know,
Mm.
we've been confronted with a lot of archetypal realities over the course of this fall, and end of summer there, where we talked a lot about the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto triad of transformation. You know, that triangle that's been fascinating us, and that we will see culminating in 2025, and that's really big, you know. And I think that our mind is really, and our hearts are really concerned with how that's all going to unfold, whether positive or negative or a mix of both. And we find ourselves in very stressful situations. And so then the rulership of Venus in Libra ruling the whole chart, to me, is a reminder. One, Venus is a very complex archetype, and expressed in Libra. Libra is an air sign, and it's a cardinal sign, so it's initiating, and it seeks to create. So Venus is the planet of love, and Libra is an air sign, so it's the beauty of ideas. So we have Venusian concepts like justice and fairness and harmony, and the beauty of ideas expressed in poetry and song and beautiful works of art that have an intellectual aspect to them. That's Venus in Libra. So we're looking at really the finer aspects of society. And so then with Venus in Libra, for most of this Jupiter Sagittarian journey, it will all end up being ruled by Libra because of Jupiter ruling all of those planets. So that's the final dispositor. So understanding the role of Venus, and maybe not focusing so much on the collective crisis, but learning to really balance. Libra is about the balance, and the negative tendency of Libra is to sweep everything negative under the rug. And that's probably a good idea as you prepare to go and visit your family, like, okay, well, let's not focus on the shadow so much. Let's focus on the uniting, harmonious energy of Venus. And in order to do that, we do need to spend some time in the watery elements, and Saturn and Neptune and Pisces will play a big role in that. So Venus makes angle to Neptune, it makes angle to Chiron.
Not Neptune right now, but everything else.
Oh, yeah. Saturn. Why don't you show the chart again?
Sure. Just to piggyback on what you're saying, though, with Venus, I just kept thinking about the High Priestess.
Absolutely.
And how it's a really great archetype to call in and card to sit with, because if we can be in our High Priestess power, we can really navigate this for our best potential.
And that is Venus in Libra is a beautiful way of expressing the High Priestess, for sure. So let's look at that again. What is Venus angling? Venus is angling Saturn. You're right. It doesn't angle Neptune. I think a little bit later on, it will make a quinsunk to Neptune, but it does oppose Chiron, and it does quinsunk Uranus. And then we're probably going to see we'll see a finger of God with Neptune and Uranus as Venus moves a little bit further here. Another couple of days, there'll be a finger of God with Neptune and Uranus. So that's a couple of days after November 27th. So let's look at that, the 29th. That's going to be the 29th to the 30th. We're going to see that finger of God with Uranus and Neptune. That's going to be really significant. So paying attention to Venus through this month, and then the square to Pluto, that's not, that's really makes it very important to, again, like you were saying, with the Pluto, Jupiter, Moon, is to connect with the ancestors and the need for the ancestors to be expressed in a beautiful manner, you know, and this time of the year is a lot about family. And so then having a beautiful creative expression of the gift that comes from the ancestors will be, to me, a really beautiful way of finding time to nurture our personal needs.
Take care of your inner Venus. I love that.
And then last but not least, we have a Mercury squares Neptune and the necessity to expressing the divine. And so that's a really beautiful little inspirational, you know, and it goes to Venus as well. And then we're going to have that finger of God coming in after a couple of days. So then really, as this full moon comes along, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And that light is the light of the high priestess, who's encouraging you to be creative and joyful in the expressions of your gift. How's that for a stretch?
I love it. It's perfect. Seems like it's got there's a nice light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's the light of the high priestess. And so then how is your Venus doing? Very important question. And so where's Venus in your chart, and how is Venus affected by this full moon will tell you a lot about how you're going to live this full moon.
Beautiful. Shall we dive into the alchemical opportunities?
Absolutely.
So a couple days before, we have the November 23rd, the sun will ingress into Sagittarius, officially starting the beginning of Sagittarius season.
And we just did a whole video on that, and we'll put a link at the end of this video for you to go check it out. And that's basically a forecast for the whole month.
And then on November 25th, a couple days later, Mars will catch up and also go into Sagittarius as the sun and the Mars continue to move really close in aspect.
And both of those planets are making a square to Saturn. And then by the 27th, the full moon T-square with Mars, Sun, and Saturn becomes, boom, full. And then Mercury squares Neptune. So then the 23rd to the 27th, kind of a very, I think we should see a very clear and significant shift of energy, taking us from the darkness of Scorpio into the beautiful celebratory light. Isn't that the isn't that the American Thanksgiving weekend?
I believe, yeah, that is that's this weekend.
Yeah, that's the 27th is Thanksgiving Monday. And so there you go. Oh, that's a nice little omen for the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. On December 2nd, Mercury will go into Capricorn. And then, oh dear, we forgot the date here. December, Venus ingresses into Scorpio.
So that's going to be very interesting. So when Venus leaves Libra, then all of a sudden everything will be ruled by Mars. And so then that should be a change. And do you remember the date?
For Venus going into Scorpio? Unfortunately, I feel like it's the 8th, but I could be wrong.
So around the 7th or the 8th, Venus will enter into Scorpio. And then we have the Sagittarius new moon after that. And right after that, Mercury turns retrograde as well. So we got a complex little month ahead. And this was our video for the Gemini full moon. And what did we call it? There's light at the end of the tunnel. And our beautiful card for this full moon, the high priestess and the rulership of Venus. How did you like this video?
Loved it. Looking forward to this full moon.
Yes, me too. And especially for Sun and Mars coming into Sagittarius. Woohoo! It's been a long time coming, and I think we're ready. Thank you for supporting the channel. 1,100 followers. That's amazing. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. Please share if you can. And comment and also press the like button. Any kind of massage of the algorithms is strongly appreciated.
Thank you, Matan. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dayana. That was fun.
Happy finding your light.